What's up, everybody? Stephen Andrew Williams, founder and president of the creditrepairshop.com. You can see my tie is loosening up, getting ready to finish out for the day, but I wanted to make this video because I did say that I'm going to start incorporating more about wealth building into my YouTube channel. And I'm going to make some introductions on some of the ways that I've invested for myself personally. uh, Obviously, the number one way that I invest is business. The first thing that I did, first lesson that I learned is that I started one business and I only focused on that business. Like there was nothing else in my head. And before that, I was trying all these different things. Then my wife and I started our publishing business, which we still have to this day. We started it in 1990. Company is it 30? Yeah, 30 years old now. 30 years old. The actual date will be in February. That it'll be this coming February. That'll actually be 30 years old. But so my advice, and I'm gonna just kind of skim over some things because I don't know exactly where everyone is at with what you're trying to do uh, to improve your financial status. But I want to kind of give you some tips to kind of bring you along. You know how I am. I'm going to bring you along, and I'm going to start at the bottom. And at the bottom, where if I could go back and tell the young Stephen what you should do, which was one of the things that I did do, but I did it without knowing, but I would have been more intentional about it, is that you focus on one opportunity. Don't get involved in multiple opportunities when you're first starting your first business. It don't be real estate, internet, uh, restaurant, cell phone store, or uh, e-commerce website. There's so many different things that you can get involved in that you should only focus on one. It doesn't matter what type of business it is. A lot of people try to tell you don't try to start a brick and mortar, don't try to start an online business, don't go into network marketing, all these different things. What it comes down to, and this is what I would have told myself, is number one, you got to focus hard on what you're trying to do. You need to put your all into it and not be afraid to fail. And then the other thing is that, especially if you're doing something like network marketing, uh, or it really any business, is that you need to number one allow people that come to you that give you advice. You need to accept that advice, and then you need to put uh, advice, that information that you've gathered from people that are trying to help you. You need to put that to work in a real way. Don't change the recipe. Uh, a good example is like you have a person that makes a lot of money, making millions of dollars. A person that makes millions of dollars talking to you right here on YouTube, and they're giving you advice on what you should do to become successful. And the first thing that you do is you take that advice and then you dump in your own advice. That is a recipe for destruction because just think if you were making a cake and you had the recipe that's on the box for the cake, but then you threw in some stuff in there that was unproven, more than likely you will not get the same. Number one, you're not going to get the same cake. And then number two, you may not even get something that's going to taste good because it's unproven. We have a habit of when someone gives us instruction is that we try to throw our own recipe in there, our own ingredients. And one of the things that I learned early and that I wish I was even more intentional on was if I got new information on something that I did not know how to do, and that individual was credible. In the way that you know a person is credible, someone asked me this question on YouTube once before. They said, "How do you know if this person is credible? If you don't know what you don't know, how do you know that they know what you don't even know?" and you have to watch them. You can't be so quick to do something. You have to watch that person, and over time, you'll see through their actions on what they're doing, not by what other people say. This is something that's very, you need to understand this. Not to say that you don't want people saying good things about a person, and you don't want them saying bad things about a person, but you can't uh, base your decision on that. You need to base your decision on what is required. What is that individual doing, and are they doing it consistently? Because there's a lot of stuff that uh, people say good things about people who work out in gyms. These people exercising, muscular, and they get can get people to lose weight. But almost 99% of the people that go to them don't lose weight. They don't get in shape. Is it the person who gave the information's fault, or is it that individual person? And I bet you that person that didn't lose weight would probably say that person's program didn't help me lose weight, when it's really the person. The person is not ready to take that information and they throw in their own ingredients. So you have a person that's making millions of dollars that is giving you an ingredient for success. That individual is me. Number one, first ingredient of advice is when you take that information is that you put it into action 100% and not be afraid to fail. Don't put in any new ingredients from yourself because you don't even know what you're doing. And don't be afraid to admit you don't know what you're doing. And you need to move forward. You may fail. You may fail because you're not 100% ready to take on the responsibilities of a successful person. That might sound crazy to you, but a lot of people who fail, they fail because internally they are not ready for success. Allow that to happen, and then what you do is you reset and you look at what you were not ready for, and then you prepare to move forward. Remember in the book, Laws of Success, where I had told you, you put a plan into action, and then you let that plan work. And if that plan fails, you rework and make a new plan. This is really what you're going to be doing for your life and what you're going to be doing when you're trying to become successful at any business that you're trying to do. Now, one of the first big investments that I made was a real estate deal. It was in 1994. It was a duplex. I think I bought the duplex for about $23,000. No, I bought the duplex for $16,000, and it was a disaster because I was not ready to take on the responsibility. Number one, it was a lot more work than I thought it was going to be. I did not enjoy being a landlord. I was not ready to be a landlord. All types of things, problems, and issues came with owning that duplex. But I did learn from that situation. And all of the properties that I got after that, what I did is I reworked and I said, no matter what, I'm not getting any properties that I have to do any work in. If I have to do any work other than finding the property and then turning it over to a contractor to do the work, then I won't even do the deal. That was the agreement that me and my wife had. And my wife, she liked doing the designing, so she would do designing, but we were not going to do any of the work. Put that into action, and on the first deal, something happened. The contractor did not do what they were supposed to do. So did I quit? No, I reset, fixed that, and then I started over again. And from that deal, instead of making, I think out of that deal, I would have made 100,000. I only ended up, and I won't say only because it was a big deal to me. I made $89,000 profit on that property, and that was a very good deal. That was a very good deal. And then I took what I learned from that property and moved it over to another property, and I made $125,000 cash in my pocket from that property. Now, let me break down some of the things that happened on finding these deals. The first thing that we did, me and my wife, is that we looked at bank owned properties. You can find lists, you can find foreclosure lists, and you can see if the bank took them back. And you can find all types of deals that way. You have to just research in your area. I can tell you that the competition is very tough in there. If you're going to be doing real estate, you are going to be fighting for deals. They got signs all over the place. They're making calls. They're doing everything to find deals. We were finding deals before they had even put them for sale with bank-owned properties. The one property that I made the 84, $85,000 profit on, that we had the issue um, with the contractor. With that property was a disaster. I bought it for 8,000 $8,400. It was a disaster. As a matter of fact, the roof at the top, it was a two-story, the roof had collapsed into the bottom floor. I mean, a lot of people would not have even did this deal. And as a matter of fact, I bought that house cash without my wife's approval. I just said, I'm going to get into it, and we're going to fix it. When my wife saw it, she was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you bought this." But we made it through that deal on that one. And we had found that property through a city search. This was a property that the city owned. And then we had contacted the real estate agent that sold the properties for the city, and we purchased that property. Uh, the next one uh, was a bigger home, a huge two-story, but it was huge. I think 3,500 square feet total living area, or probably it was probably even more than that. It was huge. It had like one, I think 8 rooms, and then a big kitchen. Like it was huge. We spent a lot of money on rehabbing that house, and the way that we found that one was a bank-owned property. We bought that one for 14,000. Now, here's the craziest thing: the bank had had that property for over 100. I think it was close to 100 something thousand dollar mortgage, and then they had written it down to an eight to try to sell it for like 80 something thousand dollars. We ended up negotiating back and forth, got that property for $14,000. And one of the things that we did to negotiate that property down, which the bank did not want to get involved with, was there was a big boiler in the basement, and you're not allowed to have those. You would not be able to sell the house with that boiler in there. We actually use that information, that whole boiler system. Number one, it was going to have to be broken apart, and has to be broken apart with special equipment on the people, and you have to take out all of the stuff, asbestos, all that stuff had to be taken out of that house, and it had to be taken out a certain way. And when we told the bank about that information, it was like, we want to wash our hands of it. 14,000 bucks, property is yours, pay us. And we rehabbed that house. Went through a little bit of issues where we did have to switch to a new contractor, not because the contractor that we had was not capable. It was he had too many jobs. And this is another thing: you have to watch out for contractors doing too many jobs at the same time. They are notorious for doing that. But even with switching contractors and losing a little bit of money with one contractor, we ended up rebounding and made a great amount of profit. I remember when I went to the bank and cashed that check from the owner when they paid it, because I didn't have any mortgage on the property. And I had, the bank was like, what are you going to do? The teller's going to say something like, "What are you going to do with all that money?" I was like, "None of your business. It's my money." So that's what that was my experience. And we have other properties. We Another property that we recently sold earlier this year, right before pandemic hit. We sold that property. Um, had purchased it from a brother and sister, or siblings, had purchased it from them for $65,000. The parents had died, and this was a house that the parents had actually built. They had built it and lived in it until they died. And when the last parent died, the siblings inherited the house, and we ended up negotiating with them. The house is probably worth like 150,000. We ended up negotiating with them for a cash deal for $65,000. And didn't even have to do nothing but paint, and we just put new appliances in that property. We kept that property for 6 years. I was making over $1,100 a month um, on that property. We did have to replace the roof after a few years, but other than that, this property was just immaculate. We did, get carpet replaced, but they had taken great care of the property. We ended up selling that property after we sold it earlier this year before the pandemic. I think, if my memory serves me right, a little over $100,000. So we had made, so you got 1,100 bucks times, say, 60 months, $66,000, and then we made our profit on top of that uh, for the house. So I mean and that's the way that sometimes you end up doing deals, is where you got the investment, you're parking your money somewhere, you're making money back on your investment, and then you look at cashing out on the backside on that. A lot of people do that with real estate. You're earning a lot more money than leaving your money in the bank sitting there. We have another property that we're looking at selling right now. We just finished it. The tenant had been renting that property. As a matter of fact, I was wrong about this one. We had that property for 10 years. So you got 10 years, 120 months times 1,100. So $132,000, and now we're selling the property have it listed for $130,000. And then we have another property that we had purchased in 2004, single family. We bought that house for 85,000. We've been renting that house for 950, I think 950 bucks a month. And we've had that house since 2004. And now we had that house for sale for $130,000. The market is real hot right now. We believe that property is going to go real fast. Um, so, with each of those properties, one of them, the last one that I mentioned, we got that deal by a real estate investor that didn't have enough money to finish the property. So basically, what we did is we took the property off of their hands because they were not going to be able to pay their bank loans. The way that it was, where they had the property at, it was not going to be finished. They didn't have the money to finish it. So we said, we'll pay give you that amount. And we ended up putting probably another $10,000 into the property to finish it off. And then we ended up renting it. We thought about selling it, but we just said we'll hold it and rent it. And it's been a good investment property. Uh, so now you might be saying, well, I don't have that kind of money to buy a property. My credit is messed up. Where do I start with buying real estate? Well, if you look at all of the real estate books and stuff, they'll tell you, you can find investors as hard money lenders and different stuff like that. I don't advise an individual that is starting out in the business to try to jump in and do it that way. Real estate is a business. It is not a game. If you can get hit with taxes, you can get hit with repairs. You can get hit with tickets from the city if you don't get certain things fixed, if you don't know what to look for, problems with the foundation, problems with the roof. It can end up being a disaster like my first property was. What I would advise someone to do if they were trying to get started in the real estate and they're trying to, get their money up so they can end up in buying a house themselves, uh, is the first thing you could do is you can uh, go out there and you can find properties for investors. They call this bird dogging. A lot of, that's what they call it. And you just go out there and you find deals for investors and you sell the deal to them. They pay you a fee for finding it, and then you check out everything and you say, hey, I got this property. You want to get it? Will you, pay me a couple of $1,000s? I'll check it out, do everything that you want. They pay. They don't just Investors don't want to be out there finding properties that way. They want to put together systems and have deals brought to them. So you can find investors all over the place that'll be willing to pay you to do that. That would be the way that I would do it, and then you stack up your money, and then you use that money to buy properties. There's one of my employees with my publishing company owns like 6 properties. He's bought them all for like two, three, four, and $5,000 from the city. And so you can look at city-owned properties that are out there. And you know, sometimes there's some rules on if you buy it, you can't sell it right away. You might have to hold it for a little bit. There's each city and has their own rules on that. But you can find properties with the city, and they can be very cheap. And as long as you're looking at rehabbing them, putting them back on the tax rolls, you know, they'll let you do some things. And there's some money that will they'll give you to help with the rehabbing of the house. But just be careful. Don't jump into something that you really don't understand about. You need to study. And I'm not talking about going to one of these real estate seminars. What I'm talking about doing is just look at a real estate property deal. Look at it for what it is, and then you figure out all the different avenues and that you would actually be able to buy the property, and then how much money would you make on the backside of that property in a realistic way. When you're getting a property, it doesn't usually sell like in 30 days. Most properties going to take a little bit of time to sell unless you're in a really hot market and in a really hot neighborhood. So that's what I'm talking about. You got to do your homework and see what are properties selling for in that area that you're looking to buy an investment property. How much is it going to cost you to get it fixed? Who are you going to work with to get it fixed? Are you going to do some of the working on it? Do you really like doing work on houses? Because I've seen people that bought houses thinking that they're going to do the work and they never got the stuff done. So there's always these things that you need to ask because you can, you know, end up in all types of trouble. All right, well, I'm gonna in this video here on real estate. I'm going to be making one on the stock market. I've, it'll blow your mind on how much money I've made over the last few months on the stock market. I'm going to talk about online business, and I'm also going to talk about coaching people for success. All right, this is Stephen Williams, founder and president of the creditrepairshop.com. I hope you enjoyed this video about wealth building.